If you haven't already, please check out part 1 regarding Jay Slater's missing person investigation, as it will help in bringing a lot more understanding into the things that we're about to get into. Otherwise, if you have been keeping up to date with this case, then it's no problem, as you should be fine from here on out. But this will be regarding the 2 last known people to have been with Jay Slater before he vanished, as well as some really interesting thoughts from a private investigator. So as we know, the last 2 known individuals to be with Jay Slater before he disappeared were released after just simple questioning by Spanish authorities, as they claim they are not in any way relevant to the case. But let's just start off with a weird fun fact. Ayab Qasim, one of the people that was last known to have been with Jay Slater before he vanished, whose name was only released due to pressure in the first place, booked the Airbnb or the accommodation in which he stayed at under a different name. Who knows why an individual would do that? Like, why wouldn't you just use your real name unless you didn't want to? So make your own mind of that as you will. What then becomes even more questionable is learning the background of just one of the men last known to have been with Jay before he disappeared. Ayab Qasim was sentenced to 9 years in jail for masterminding a sophisticated drug dealing operation to flood Wales with drugs. So again, we then come back to the first question. What is a 31-year-old man doing hanging around with a 19-year-old male at a festival? Like, what is the interest in a 31-year-old male to a 19-year-old Jay Slater? Or what is the interest of the 19-year-old now missing teen Jay Slater to these 31-year-old men? That is a connection that we don't seem to have any answers to as of yet. But weirdly enough, Qasim ran or was part of a legal weed cafe over in Tenerife. Not specifically this one in particular, but over in Tenerife there is something that's sort of widely known. And this is that yes, you can legally purchase weed from these cafes, but you can also purchase illegal substances from these places too. So what can happen, and I'm not saying is what happened here, is if you are someone that's connected to be able to buy from there, you can then buy from there and distribute it at festivals for double the price of which you paid for it originally. As supply and demand can be really high at these festivals and nightclubs, as when certain individuals are in these locations, they don't exactly have the resources to be able to get it, so they'll pay whatever the cost of it is in order to obtain it. So logistically, it's easier for anyone to just buy out there, as you're not really going to risk trying to take something through airport security and so on. It's simply just easier to obtain it in the area of which you are going to. So when out there are a lot of young English lads and women out there that are around Jay's age doing exactly this. And I'm not saying that they are specifically, this is just something that in general does happen. Which then opens up the interesting question between the relationship between Jay and the last 2 known individuals to have been with him. As does this go a lot further than just simply helping out a friend you've just met? Is this more of a working relationship, in which potentially someone in Jay's group, or even Jay himself, purchases from these individuals? And this is one of the reasons that individuals that were close to Jay were not particularly keen on showing their face on camera, as this would then implicate them to these individuals further than what's actually being let on. But Qasim did somewhat make a little bit of a statement, kind of, and it was really weird to go through. So one of the things that he said was this: the kid came alive and left alive. He doesn't even refer to the individual by his first name, simply the kid. Obviously we understand the dexterity of this situation, and that quite simply put, being cordial isn't something that really should have to be being explained to you. There is a family out there currently missing their son, and rightly so, they have questions about his disappearance. So firstly, where is the worry and concern? As an individual that was with him moments prior to him disappearing, and with the dexterity of this situation pretty clear, then why did you mention the word alive? You're insinuating death when death wasn't really being insinuated towards you, which is really weird in itself, as there should be a huge cause for concern for the individual. I mean, you were so helpful the night prior. You drove him all the way back to your accommodation, gave him a blanket, offered him things to use in the accommodation, was helpful throughout this entire duration. So why are you then so careless in his disappearance? Or even just assisting in helping, as this would just make the situation even stranger. As again, this is really different if Jay left that festival with a group of lads similar to his own age, but he didn't. He left with a man a lot older than him, with an experienced background in distribution that he did jail time for. for, miles away from his accommodation, only to then go missing when attempting to get back to his own accommodation in the morning. Yet, the police released these two individuals, claiming they contained no relevance to the case. Like, am I being crazy here, or is that just mind-boggling in itself? Like, they allowed these two to be questioned, then fly straight home. Not only that, but police in the UK have offered their services only to be turned down by Spanish authorities, which is just weird in itself. Why ask the public in help for assisting, but resist the police over in the UK equipped and ready to deal with the investigation? Like, as far as policing goes, that is fucking poor police work. So again, does that then go deeper into wonder? Do the police have somewhat of a connection to the trades already taking place? Are they paid? Are things allowed to go under the radar if certain people's pockets are lined? As that's now just a question of who knows. But then interestingly comes another theory. Early on it was said that Jay was connected to a watch being stolen the night that he went missing. So Jay had put a Snapchat out saying this: "Yeah cuz, ended up getting thrown out of there. Me with two Mali kids just took an AP off some on way to sell it for 10 quid. So what is Jay saying here? Is he saying that him and these two individuals in question took the watch? Like, were they a part of something that night that may have led to his disappearance later on in the morning? But what I did notice was that he said that immediately he's on the way to sell it. Because if he's just took it, how could he have already had a buyer? And was that buyer someone who already had interest in that watch? Or were they someone connected to the individual he just stole the watch from? Was someone just awaiting to trap him to get it back? Because it hasn't been reported that a watch has been stolen. And this in itself is not a good thing. This could mean that the watch in itself was originally stolen, as these watches, as we know, are not cheap. Or the person didn't want to report this watch as stolen, as they had means themselves of getting this watch back. So it might have even been that the two individuals Jay was with that night had no involvement into what actually happened later on to Jay, but were directly involved in something that may have led to that, which is what led the last known individual to have been with Jay to refuse to come out and help with any knowledge about the case. Now, there has been some CCTV from the area in which Jay went missing. It's hard to hear and they have added captions, and I just think that this is important in itself to watch, although I don't think this relates to the case due to its timing, as we do know from Snapchat as well as witnesses that saw Jay that he was at that accommodation in the morning. And this video is at night, but it's interesting to say the least. Now, an investigator known as Mark Williams Thomas from the UK has flown out there, and he himself has immediately applied the pressure. He said he wanted to speak to the last two people that were known to have been with Jay Slater before his disappearance, and if he didn't, he would then release the identities of these two individuals, which is how we were even able to get the latest update from Mark himself, when Kwasim would come forward to him to explain what happened the night/morning before Jay's disappearance. And I want to take a little look into that and also break it down.
Ayub has provided me with his account of what he says happened on that morning, Monday the 17th of June. He says he was on the strip, Jay wanted to carry on partying, and he said he had nowhere to stay, so he said he could come back to his. They say in the car, they played music and chatted before stopping to get a drink.
So firstly, Jay did have somewhere to stay. We know that. In fact, his accommodation is closer from the festival than what Kwasim's was. So straight away, that is a tad weird, but okay.
At a cafe at the shop just prior to entering the mountains, he says he was driving, his friend was in the passenger seat, and Jay was in the back. They say on arrival at the rental, his friend opened the door, went into the left and went straight to sleep. Jay walked in behind, followed by him, and when gone inside, they went upstairs, and Ayub then said to Jay, "Sofa's yours, here's a towel, here's a blanket, have a shower if you want." Jay asked for a cigarette, and Ayub said, "I've got some Camel cigarettes," and put one on the side. Jay then asked for a phone charger. He said, go into my friend's room, he's asleep, take his charger and you can put your phone on charge.
So from what's being said here, it's very accommodating. He's helping Jay. He's given him a place to stay, a blanket, cigarette, use my mate's charger if you need to. But what makes this really confusing is that he wouldn't come forward. It was almost like he was under threat just to give this out, even though it's known that you are the last known person to have been with him, which is clearly vital in helping. And I just want to say, by the way, that this next part is super interesting.
Ayub says he then goes to sleep and he's woken by a buzzer. Ayub says he comes down the stairs. Jay says to him, what's that annoying noise? Which was the doorbell. Ayub says he opens the door and speaks to a woman and a man, and they gesture that he needed to move his car. Ayub says he gets into his car and he's starting to move it, and he looks in the rearview mirror and he sees Jay talking to a woman. He's got his trainers on, so he's about to leave.
So at the exact time that Qasim leaves to move his car, Jay has his shoes on and is ready to leave. Or is this Jay taking an opportunity while Qasim is busy moving the car? Because this could have quite literally have been Jay doing a runner. Qasim knows, if he's following the case, that we know, the public, that Jay spoke to a woman before his disappearance. And Qasim's story here could have somewhat have been manipulated, so this could better suit the story of help and not the fact that Jay was potentially fleeing. And Qasim then goes on to say that he even offers to give Jay a lift and that he should just simply wait it out. Jay still flees this area, or at least leaves this area on foot. Doesn't want to wait for a bus, doesn't want to be on the main road either, and goes in a direction away from his accommodation, which, as we know, is literally like an 11 to 14 hour walk through mountainous terrain in Tenerife.
Jay then says to Ayub, having moved the car, the woman says, I can get a bus every 10 minutes. And Ayub says, he says to him, mate, just chill out. I'll drop you off in town when I wake up properly. He went, no, I'm hungry. I need to get a scran. And the woman told me I can get a bus every 10 minutes to Los Cristianos. Ayub says, he replies, there's no bus coming. This is my green door. If you need me. He says he shut the door. Jay walks away and he goes back to sleep. He then says he gets a call from a friend of Jay's who says that he's in a ditch somewhere and he's been cut by a cactus.
So weirdly, what he's telling us here is that rather than wait, rather than get a lift back, even though it's offered, he would rather walk 11 to 14 hours or take the next bus in public without these two individuals. In any case, it seems like staying there was not a good idea. Then the other question is who? Who is this friend? Who of Jay's friends knew that specifically Jay was with these two individuals? Even in the Snapchat released by Jay, it doesn't mention who Jay is with. So who is this friend and how is he connected? Or able to contact Qasim to give over this information? Like, what is the relationship here? As it seems like everyone knows Qasim, or at least has his number, but Jay, who's the one that's conveniently described as someone that he's just met. Yet it seems common knowledge to absolutely everyone else exactly who Jay's with, which then adds a little bit more of an interesting question. Why haven't these friends put pressure on these individuals? Why haven't the friends of Jay released the names of these individuals? Why have they too kept that hidden? Why has it taken Mark Williams Thomas, an investigator, to go out there to apply pressure to get these simple statements? Again, just more questions and few answers.
The evidence still strongly supports that Jay left the Airbnb suddenly, walked for 30 minutes before wandering off-road, where at 08:49 and 08:50 on the Monday he dropped a location pin.
If Jay's been out all night, partying, intoxicated and so on, the last thing that anyone's going to want to do, hungover or worse, is walk 14 hours in a location unknown to you with no battery, unless you have to.
However, as part of this investigation, we have sought to identify and speak with as many people that Jay had contact with whilst in Tenerife. The result of this digging has opened up an established criminal network with links to drugs, violent crime and theft. Appreciate that at this stage I cannot expand any further on what we now know.
So he has actually stuck this on them somewhat. He's explaining that there are criminal connections out there, but without directly saying it, he's also saying it. This isn't just some kids simply getting lost. There is way more to this than meets the eye. Obviously, he cannot give out the full details of which he understands at this stage, as the cards now being kept close to his heart play a huge advantage over everyone else, as others don't know what exactly he knows. So stories are harder to keep in a variable line from people that know more when they don't know what the person that has accusing them actually holds against them. But anyway, that's it from me at the moment. Please let me know some of your thoughts and theories regarding this case, as quite honestly I would love to know. It's been baffling to watch unfold these last few weeks and has only got harder to understand the more that the days have gone by. But as always, hit that like and subscribe button as it always helps out the channel, and hit that bell for post notifications so that you can keep up to date with anything new regarding the case. Otherwise, have a great day and thanks for watching.